Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate everyone joining us on the day today, which I heard is going to be the busiest day for calling in sickness due to the bank holiday weekend. So appreciate everyone turning up. My name's Joe Sadler, for those that don't know me, and today we're going to be talking about social media screening for safer recruitment and ultimately why it's important and why so many companies are now looking into it. I just want to let you know that I'm happy to answer any questions today. If you do want to type your questions in at any point, I will get through them at the end. During the presentation, I will just continue as normal. I don't want anyone to feel that I'm ignoring them, but I will get round to your questions at the end, and any that we don't get round to, we'll come back to you individually. So what's on today? We're going to be going through why safer recruitment expectations are changing, the growing role of social media screening, blind spots in traditional screening processes, ethical and compliant best practice, what modern screening workflows look like, real-world examples and flag content insights. We'll give you examples of what those social media checks look like and what they uncover, and then QA and next steps for those that want to continue. So we do have a poll today. So I'm sure it's either come up on the screen already, or it is coming up on the screen during. So the first question of the day: do you currently use social media screening as part of your recruitment? Answers are yes, we're fully integrated. Yes, but we're doing this manually. You're considering it, or no. So ultimately, we're really here today because ultimately DBS checks don't always uncover the high risk. The hiring risk in individuals nowadays. A good example, which we don't like to reference too much, but if certain people were to do a social media check today, they wouldn't have been employed based on their following of certain groups and influences that they were liking and engaging with online, but ultimately they passed the DBS check, which ultimately criminal record checks don't always uncover or paint the full picture of a candidate. So in today's digital world, and online behaviour is increasingly linked to safeguarding reputational risk and public accountability. So the rise of online behaviour concerns. So, organisations are facing increased pressure to strengthen the due diligence process of applicants and making sure that they're analysing that individual and finding as much about that person before kind of moving forward to employment. A lot of kind of governing bodies are also pushing the fact that outside of DBS, criminal record checks, CVs and interviews, references, you should be looking outside of that and start to look at the social media to kind of reduce that risk in hiring and making sure that those individuals are who they are, who they say they are, who you've interviewed, and ultimately don't cause damage beyond that point, and ultimately could impact your brand if they were exposed in any way. So this is a really good example, actually. What we kind of verify at the moment is the CVs, the DBS checks. Obviously, they're referencing, but what a lot of people aren't picking up on is those horror stories. So, those individuals that you might be hiring, who might be posting things like that you can see on my screen here. Ultimately, what social media does is it uncovers these flag content, which ultimately might give you a different impression of the person that you're looking to hire. So we're really interested to know right now what is driving the most pressure in recruitment right now. Is it safeguarding? Is it compliance? Is it reputational risk? Is it candidate volume? We would really want to know your opinion. So although lots of our existing clients who may be on this call today and individuals that we're speaking with at the moment, who have strong processes in place, they still have blind spots in their process. So, fragmented systems, you might be going to multiple systems to run these checks, manual documentation review, inconsistent checks, no visibility to it, online behaviour, difficult to trace candidate audit trails, and your process might be quite reactive rather than proactive. And ultimately, what kind of adding social media does is it kind of aligns and reduces a lot of those risks. Our social media platform is filtered through 10,000 plus online sources and social media platforms, where we'll be looking into certain content categories, which include written and reshared posts. So insights into opinions that your candidates might have, attitudes and interactions with others, video content, so potential behavioural indicators that kind of link to risk areas, image analysis, so even though that they might not be commenting, they might be liking, they might be sharing but having no opinion, but there's a context around beliefs, affiliations or activities. It may be engaging with certain signs of trolling, harassment, bullying, hate speech, discriminatory behaviour. And we can also pick up on the fact if they're engaging with certain group members or following certain pages, which ultimately bring out that risk. We recently uncovered that, if there's someone who was a part of a major incident in the past, they passed the DBS check, they passed the criminal background check and they had no criminal activity. However, if we were to do a social media check on them back when they had that DBS check, we would have uncovered that they were engaging in kind of terrorist activity and pages that influence terrorist activity. So, there's major risks that in not providing a social media check, certainly in those high-risk sectors where ultimately you need to make sure that that candidate is who they say they are and they are going to provide a safe environment within the workplace. So how automated social media screening works. So first of all, we locate the candidate's social profiles. So we can either request those profile links, so their handles for their social media accounts. Just to put it out there though, if they've got something to hide, they're probably not going to be so forthcoming to add their handles. And if they don't worry, our platform should pick up those handles. We then screen those social media profiles as well as screen online activity against flagged risk categories and keywords. A few people have asked me in the past, can we add those keywords that we want? Yes, you can. We just need to know what they are. We're happy to give you a list of what the existing ones look like. And then you're able to review publicly available misconduct indicators and behavioural risk signals directly from your report and what that report looks like. And just so you know, this is an example. M. Davies is not a real person in this world. And as you can see, some of the content that it's been able to pick up from their social media report. So ultimately we can flag content. I do want to highlight, we don't only just flag the negatives, we also flag the positives. So for example, if you're putting a few of your candidates through a social media screening check prior to employment, then ultimately you can we can highlight the positive stuff. So as you can see, this individual has been influenced in engaging with and sharing the fact that she's doing a lot of fundraising with public schools, etc. This is really, really good way to kind of also pick up on the fact that that's really nice. I feel like I've made the right decision in my hire. So we do make it fair and well-rounded. Social media screening should always, by the way, use publicly available information, align with clear job relevant criteria, be reviewed by humans, not solely automation. So even though our reports might pick up on a few things, you might find that our social media checks are providing a little bit too much information, but ultimately at least it makes you have a good judge of character. Avoid protected characteristic bias, form part of a wider screening policy, and your social media screening should always comply with privacy and employment legislation. And as you can see, we're meeting a number of compliant workflows in our process. So I want to kind of talk about this new compliant modern recruitment screening stack. So a lot of our clients, probably about 50% of those who have just recently implemented our high ID product, are looking at multiple screening checks in their journey. So they're going through digital right to work check with ID verification, basic standard or enhanced employment history verification and references. They're then doing social media checks, and they're also now looking at additional safeguarding as well before clearing those individual roles. Social media isn't replacing the traditional checks. It's just another layer added to make sure that we are, improving better hiring in the industry and making sure that that you are safer hiring every single time. So, quick question. Do you think social media screening will become standard in the next 3 to 5 years? I know after speaking with a few individuals who work in education and care, there's definitely a lot of bodies out there like the KC and the CQC, are saying that they're recommending it, but I want to know your opinion. Do you think it will become standard within the next 3 to 5 years? So a real world case study here, I'm sure the majority of you have seen that the BBC, after their hiring mishap with the individual on The Apprentice, the BBC are demanding more tighter vetting after the candidate's offensive social media posts. The post reportedly included discriminatory language, offensive remarks targeting religious groups, and ultimately it led to bad branding against the BBC and The Apprentice in particular. So, look, we want to ensure that those risks are reduced, and your brand doesn't get damaged like this. And this is why so many are looking into this. So, in summary, short session today, but social media screening. Safer recruitment expectations are evolving. Traditional checks alone don't always show the full picture. Digital footprint and online behaviour are becoming a part of due diligence. Social media screening really just strengthens the existing screening process, doesn't take over. Modern workflows are becoming more automated and connected, and ethical compliance screening is critically important. So for those who want to know more, we're happy to run through and review your screening process. So if you're an existing client, you can book in with Josh directly after this call today. We can identify where you can reduce reputation risk, automate social media screening as part of your existing screening workflow. So for new organisations, do feel free to book in with myself. We are also offering a free 12-day screening trial, which you can sign up to either online or directly with us off the back of this call. I'm happy to open up to some questions now, guys. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to fire them across. Questions so far. I'll give just another couple of moments. If you do have any questions after this call, feel free to get in touch. My email is joe@ebcglobal.co.uk. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I do see that someone is typing a question. Yeah, sure. So how long does it take to process a social media check? So we're normally seeing social media checks come back within a 24-hour period at the moment. We've seen them quicker than that, but we've not really seen them go over 24 hours. That being said, I think that the technology is improving day by day. So we're likely to see some improvements to that timeline and matching kind of our DBS checks coming back within like 22 minutes at the moment, which is crazy for a basic. I see that we have another question coming through. Right, there might be any more questions, guys. Okay, well, like I said, guys, if any of you do have any questions post this conversation, please feel free to get in touch. Happy to run through a demo. And thank you very much for turning up today. I really appreciate it.